Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a podcast about music where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. I'm Petey Rave, and I had to refund all my tickets to ride because traveling is just not a thing that's happening right now. Here with me is my team, my squad, my people who are already ready. We've got David.
But you can have it.
Mm-hmm. We've got Matt.
400 cycles per second reference tape, 71867.
Mm-hmm. And we've got Brett.
Who knew that like the nerdy middle child from Step by Step could play a bass guitar?
Yeah, that's just how it works. That's how it works. Who knew Step by Step? Really, it's just 'cause that's really the question.
I mean,
I didn't.
Patrick Duffy, Suzanne Somers,
That was a Family Matters
cousin
spin-off.
Cody that showed up because they
It was
needed somebody.
They had a crossover. They're not an official spinoff. They had a crossover.
I call it a spin-off.
They existed in the same universe, but with none of the same quality. Mediocre sitcoms aside, mediocre forgettable sitcoms aside, we're talking about an album. We're talking about music, as we always do. And the provider of the album this week is Matt. Matt, what have you got for us this week?
I brought the 1967 album Vanilla Fudge by the band Vanilla Fudge.
Yeah, this is a fascinating band. Let's talk about expectations. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
My expectations coming into this, seeing the time frame that it came from and looking these guys up, I got the impression and the idea that these guys are going to kind of play their instruments and sort of work their way around a couple of recognizable songs. I got the impression that they are a jam band, not exactly putting things together meticulously, as one would sometimes do. And I expected it to be very organ heavy, which I looked forward to because I love a good Hammond B3 in any chance I could hear it. So I was open-minded about it. Vanilla Fudge. I went in open-minded.
Mm-hmm. I went in hungry. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I have heard of Vanilla Fudge. I have never like gone out of my way to hear Vanilla Fudge. I know the songs that Vanilla Fudge has played, and I'm pretty sure I've heard at least one of the songs off of this, but I don't know. It's of the genre of music that sort of like when it comes to kind of organy, kind of psychedelic cover bands of the 70s or late 60s. That's not necessarily my wheelhouse, but yeah, for like, I don't know, like, yeah, there are some things I need to dig into about these people. And the like, I got to figure out who Cactus is and like all sorts of stuff now. But yeah, well, there are some characters here that I need to figure out. So
there's a personality of band that I was expecting, and I think I got it. But I don't know if I exactly knew what I was getting musically, just because I think I've heard the name, but it's
like where else would Vanilla Fudge be like in your brain? Like that's where I'm at. Like
Yeah.
I have to have heard, yeah.
Yeah, like I've heard. If nothing else,
Ice
I'm
cream.
gonna guess randomly seeing them in my brother's at karaoke in the songbook selection right before Vanilla Ice. Like it's going like So Vanilla Fudge, Vanilla Ice, and
You know, that,
you must have seen.
I
that
can
movie.
see that.
yeah, you know that's probably that's probably a lot of people have searched vanilla for ice and got fudge.
What song would it be for them though?
I think I could tell you on iCrunes. I believe it's one of I think the single that off of this. And go to iCrunes. Shout out to iCrunes for keeping a comprehensive database of the entirety of karaoke.
So somebody's got to be doing that good work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
Doing
keep
the
me
Lord's
hanging
work.
on. We'll talk about that song, but yeah, it's You Keep Me Hanging On that is available in karaoke in various forms from various companies. And if you can find that Sound Choice copy, good Lord, good luck to you. Good luck to you. But that's a good one. But Dangerous Group probably has a good one. But my over a decade and a half experience of karaoke aside, let's talk about this album. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
I mean, it's a pretty simple premise. You take pop songs of the era, you slow them way down, and then you make them heavy and psychedelic. There's a lot of heavy organ, heavy man, a lot of distorted guitar.
Heavy, man.
Yeah, man. And it's heavy on the organ too. And then the second side just has a lot of weird little interstitials. And that's yeah, I mean it's a 4-piece group. It's guitar, bass, drums, and organ, and there really isn't a whole lot of, extra instrumentation on this album, if any.
Yeah. Every single one of the members is credited as vocals.
Yes. We watched video.
Yeah.
They all sang.
Yeah. Like, I want a microphone. I want a microphone.
And what great video it is, too.
Oh, man.
It's a damn video, folks.
Puffy shirts, velvet robes. It's guy that looks like the middle child from Step by Step. Like,
let the listeners go out and YouTube Vanilla Fudge for themselves
and enjoy the thumbnail.
God, this is a nightmare.
It's great.
Yes. Yeah. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this as a group of guys that were probably contemporaries of the Doors, but said to themselves that they could probably do better and do something with a little more oomph to it. I think that would be a pretty close comparison, that they are a heavier version of the Doors. They're a more distorted version of the Doors, and they take some of those pop standards of the time and they put them in different places, if you will. The guys in this band are creative to a degree, and they're willing to stretch and contort songs, which
Slap that on the album cover. Creative to a degree.
they're creative to a degree, and they can twist and contort pop songs in a way that is not what you would expect.
Mm-hmm. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
I mean, it's an organ-wielding heavy rock band of the late 60s playing hits of the day. Like, they make sure to get, like, plenty of the Beatles. When you play other people's music, you sort of, your focus is on the performance, seeing that, we're not reaching into someone's soul and hearing words they put down on paper, which is kind of weird. I don't know that we've ever done like a straight up like band that covered things.
Yeah.
That
We just did Shatner.
I mean, but not generally, or bands. That's a guy. That's a guy with money and had access to a studio and a phone. I mean, there have been other people that have done those stunt albums as well. Like, let me tell you, Bill Cosby. I love, I love to hate that album. But no, this is a very 1960s recording. The organ, it sometimes does the Deep Purple type organ, where you can hear the volume pedal being pushed and things starting to break up at times. Sometimes it's a church organ, and like it doesn't help that there are like every person's got a microphone, therefore they've got to harmonize.
Yeah.
In the late 60s rock and roll way of white people harmonizing.
Attempts to harmonize.
I mean, it's
not exactly polished.
Well, I mean, it's not like there are white people that harmonize with bluegrass music in that way all the time. But this was more in the we're trying to do R&B harmonies, and we don't have the Supremes, but we've got Frank. Or sorry, we've got
Harmon,
Mark, and Vince.
Not exactly David
Tim
Ruffin
and Carmine.
Folks.
Yes. So but that there is a focus on the oohs and ahs on this album, and that's a very 60s rock and roll thing. We got an organ, we've got everybody singing. The video, there's definitely some consumption of drugs. There's some mouth stuff going on. Yeah. Like by the said bassist, like
he was in a zone.
Yeah,
he was in a zone.
Nobody who wears a robe like that isn't in the zone.
Yes, and we're not talking about AutoZone.
Yeah, they get kicked out of AutoZone.
Yeah.
Sir, you're too far into the zone. You need to leave.
I feel like I should have worn a robe for the Shatner episode.
Oh, and one last thing. This album, like, they take all of these songs and they slow them down. That's another thing that they had to have all of the time for, there's dancers in this video that we saw, and they're just like slowly pelvic thrusting because it's such a slow song. And it's like, when people wearing their kaiju costumes like move really slowly to act like they're like way low, it's kind of, that's how they were dancing. So like, It was kind of like how do you
but not seductively either though.
No, it's like how can you make a pelvic thrust unsexy? They kind of do it. It's kind of weird.
It's an accomplishment. It's an accomplishment in and of itself.
The 60s,
Misplaced
everybody.
Go-go dancers is some of my favorite genre of video.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's like some big
no
hair going on there too. Yeah. Everything about that, like everybody looks back at the period of rock and roll and they didn't realize everybody was dressed like, they were a pirate, and like people danced weird.
Yeah.
Take that nostalgia.
Yeah.
Boom. Got him.
Yeah. I like this is definitely this music is very interesting. It's very psychedelic. It's very weird. It was interesting to listen to. It was a wild trip, man. And and it's cool to kind of like get into somebody that made their career being a cover band. They started their career being a cover band, and it worked for them in a sense. And it kind of blows your mind listening to these songs and like these high like this is super slow speed, listening to freaking let's talk about the actual songs before I dive into it. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks? There's not a lot of them, so what would be the key moments or key tracks for you?
Ticket to Ride, just because it's the first song and it does a lot to kind of tell you, all right, strap in because there's gonna be a lot of this. I hope you like it. People Get Ready. In my mind, this is the canonical version of the song. The harmonies are decent, like they're decently good. The arrangement, however, like this is a good performance. There is a version of this that may or may not exist that is an outstanding performance that would use the same arrangement just by people with a little more talent. Every once in a while there's and this just goes for any music. There's a moment of a song or a song, but usually a moment of a song that just makes me really, really want to know what happened during the production of this album or song. And in this case, it happens at 3 minutes and 20 seconds when there's just this egregiously loud organ note that immediately goes away, but it's just there. And every time I listen to it, I wonder, did nobody decide? Why didn't anybody fix this? I don't know.
Because it was the 60s, and that would have taken
the 60s,
40
man.
hours
Yeah.
to
I
fix the
guess.
tape and all of that.
Yeah, you keep me hanging on. This is a great one to belt. There's a reason that this is the karaoke track. Some people may recognize this as the same exact arrangement as Rod Stewart, and no, your ears are not deceiving you. It's probably because the drummer went on to play with Rod Stewart. The other reason you might recognize this song is because it was used in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but with a different mix. And when I was watching that, I was like, that's Vanilla Fudge! And I was really excited, and my brother was like, who cares? But yeah, it's a great one. And another little production moment of Take Me for a Little While just goes down to mono at the end. No reason.
Oh,
just cause.
Yeah.
It's like,
what wasn't it?
I don't know.
I need to go back and listen with headphones again, but I keep forgetting to think about it and listening to and paying attention for it. But wasn't it mono most of the at least on Spotify?
I was getting stereo with the organ doing its some of its organ stuff, but
So,
I could hear when it was, but then also it's I mean, it sounds sometimes like poop, kind of
Yeah.
muddy and
the original
Kind of old.
Yeah.
Old.
the original pressing Keep Me Hanging On was entirely in mono. I didn't listen to the Spotify version, so I don't know whether or
you
not.
pull it out of the sleeve and
Yeah,
plop
buddy.
it down on the wheels of steel. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah,
and-
well, I will say that the on Spotify, I definitely noticed it during at the end because right at and Take Me for a Little While, it goes from stereo. It starts mono, goes to stereo, goes back to mono,
And then it goes back to stereo. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and then it goes to and then it has the same issue in Eleanor Rigby, if I remember. But definitely in that one where it kind of like it goes into that, and then when it's just I don't know what's going on, man. And I was like, am I crazy, man? Am I crazy?
I'm tripping out, man.
Petey, I was just reading this story about this car and it runs on water.
Bro, I don't want you to know about it, man. I don't want you to know about it. Yeah. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
You keep me hanging on. I'm going to say how I really felt when I listened to this. It felt like a band that, there are bands out there that do parody songs, and this sounds like they were trying to do a parody of You Keep Me Hanging On rather than their own interpretation of it. It kind of sounded like they didn't like the song very much and were making fun of it with this. Also, I will say that Eleanor Rigby was mildly amusing for the same reasons, in that they were taking this arrangement and just doing something that almost felt like a parody. And I just want to give them one shout out for the fact that they did Bang Bang, a Sonny Bono song. And that's just fantastic. Just the temerity to do that is just great.
Temerity. Brett, What would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, I mean, they open with the Ticket to Ride. You know, if
game.
you're in the late '60s and you want to be successful, it's probably, and you're a cover band. You know, maybe cover that the biggest act of the decade. Maybe it worked for them. I guess I'm learning that they're Grammy Award winning. But yes, I'm learning all kinds of things.
So really, you can't really.
You know,
count on.
Jethro Tull is great.
I mean,
They are.
They aren't heavy metal, but
They're not heavy metal,
is
but they are
worth,
great.
It's Grammy
The
Award winning
flute
heavy
is
metal.
a heavy
but-
metal instrument.
Yes.
That's right. Go the
I could bring some albums, guys.
We've
If we want some heavy metal flute, I've brought heavy metal saxophone. I can bring some heavy metal flute if you want.
I'm down for that.
So the one thing with Ticket to Ride that it opened up with you're
Takes a
getting
little
into
while
a
to
rock
play,
and roll
there's a lot of
band with
setup,
an organ.
sorry.
But yes, yeah, yes, choo choo. But the vocals are reverbed out in a weird way. It kind of sounds like somebody just left the door to the studio open, and you got some I don't know, weird. It was of a quality that I would expect, minus the organ, at a Friday night at the Knights of Columbus or something. I'm sure at the time everybody wasn't playing at the Moose like this, but it's kind of got that feeling of a bunch of people playing old music in an old way. Bang Bang, this is an educational album. I learned that song was written by Sonny Bono. That's noteworthy. Beavis
That's
and
another
Butthead
one
said he was a cop from San Diego, and he also wrote Bang Bang. Sonny Bono's a successful man, or was a successful man.
Bang Bang is the other one that's like the true canonical version in my head. I don't know if I've ever heard the original, and the only way I will hear it, if I can help it, is by not realizing and being like, hey, is that Vanilla Fudge song playing?
So you've not heard the Impressions version of People Get Ready, Matt,
No.
or any Curtis Mayfield interpretation.
I may have heard People Get Ready.
All right.
I've heard Eva Cassidy do People Get Ready. I've probably heard some others, but not Bang Bang.
But guys, have you heard Part B of Illusions of My Childhood? You Keep Me Hanging On.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I have.
Or perhaps if you're gonna open your album with the Beatles, why not close it? This version of Eleanor Rigby, but slower, and it starts with a bunch of that intro.
Yeah.
That intro that has a hard let's just make this slick, smooth transition here into Eleanor Rigby, and it's like somebody ka-chunk, song off, song back on. But there was some neat there's a lot of hippie shit going on with the there's some bass doing stuff. You can't hear it very well, but they do a lot of it. It's a slow and plodding version of Eleanor Rigby. It's what it is.
You swear it was a video game trailer in the past a decade or so.
Yeah, it should have been a black and white swing set blowing it in the wind, played to
Oh my
no,
God.
Yeah.
Rated M for mature.
God, I would love. I need that.
Yeah.
I need that.
I honestly, we you guys have touched on every song, so I have nothing to add other than I would love to hear somebody put a game trailer to this version of Eleanor Rigby.
God, I want it to organically happen. I want to be watching the non E3 presentations, and then just all of a sudden,
world premiere. Yeah.
Look at all the lonely people.
Yeah.
And Eleanor Rigby without the strings, it's kind of like it's a bold choice.
Yeah. Well, they also they get that part instead of C major, they have like that little interlude to C minor, and I really like it.
I think this is not my favorite cover of Eleanor Rigby. My favorite cover is the one by the dude what does the Critical Role song, his band Godhead, but only by a little bit. Let's talk about conclusive thoughts. Let's bring it back around the horn. David, what would be your conclusion at the end of the day on the album?
I am glad they did not cover Come Together, which is my favorite Beatles song. This was an album where I can imagine sometime in 1968, Robert Fripp would probably see these guys play and say to himself, I want to do the exact opposite of that. I can see him having that point of view. This was probably not my favorite album so far on this podcast. I felt like their interpretations of these covers was unique, but not something that I would go back to. I think that what they were trying to do might be just an audience that I'm not a part of. I think I have an idea of who that audience is, and I'm not a part of that audience. So, covers of Curtis Mayfield aside, not my favorite.
Brett, how would you conclude on this album?
I mean, even to this moment, like when I found a PBS video of from 2016 showing current day Vanilla Fudge, the current-ish day, it brings me joy. Like, there's a lot about this album that makes me smile. It's obviously there was some skill here. They're musicians. They did a thing. Yeah, I as a jaded dork, I think this is just this is like Friday Night at the Moose level of rockin', and I'm kind of shocked that you could have ever made a career being a pop music rock and roll cover like band and like have a career like a functional, like not just like my music career would have ever been, had I not given up before I lost all of my money investing in my awesome band. It's not something I'm probably going to go back to anytime soon. I'm very, very happy I have like all of this knowledge of Vanilla Fudge and the things that came along with it. But like my life was not changed forever. But I can't say it was like I've not been harmed at all. I've been more smiles listening to this than I've been frowns. Yeah. It's entertaining. Yeah. Let's say that.
This album was a fascinating experience. It's a cool listen, and I enjoyed it. It's probably not something that like I'm gonna like want to put on at any given time, like any like just random given time, but it was a cool like it was enjoyable homework. And I got something out of it.
I'm scrunching my face.
I can see.
It was a good time, and I'm glad to have experienced it. I'm glad for this band. I'm glad for Vanilla Fudge that at least they're cited as a pretty influential band and have brought forth some other groups in their wake. And really, really, what comes down to it, they really influenced the people and brought forth different ideas and groups. And because without them, who knows, we probably would never have had Richard Cheese, and I don't know what kind of world we would be in like that. So that being said, Matt, what would be your conclusion on this whole album?
The general concept, I think, is, if not one note, the fact that you can sum it up in a single sentence. Oh, they take pop songs and slow them down and play them psychedelic. That said, that's fine. I think it's really, it varies from pretty to really creative and varied interpretations of the songs. I think it's interesting that, David, you found a lot of these takes to be maybe not quite in good faith, perhaps. Because I never thought about it that much, I guess, but I always took it to, it's like, hey man, I bet this would sound really cool if we slowed it down. Especially because, like, you keep me hanging on. It's not a happy song. But that said, like, all in all, I think it's a fun album to blast. Just the amount of emotion, especially if we separate emotion from vocal talent, they put a lot of emotion into these songs, and I think it's enjoyable to maybe campily at this point, but campily put that same amount of emotion into singing along.
I'm a heartless vocal pragmatist.
You stand.
I might
talent.
be the biggest vocal snob here, and yeah.
I'm the guy who went on record multiple times saying, take the vocals out and add like a saxophone or a guitar, and I'd be probably okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if somebody's trying real hard with a saxophone, their cheeks are all like rosy and they're like, goober in their circular breathing. I have a lot better response than somebody who's singing as hard as they can sing, and I'm still like, I don't know. That's a me problem, not a vocals problem.
I love hearing him just almost cry when he says, "Why don't you, babe?"
Yeah, like when Shatner was like, "Come on, let's go space truck."
Oh, that is over the line.
Oh,
Don't you
that's so
compare this to
genuine.
William Shatner?
Come on.
No, nowhere near on Shatner's level.
Yeah.
Come
Let's go
on.
space trucking.
Let's go space trucking. Come on.
That's a performance.
Yeah, performance art.
Yes.
All right. Those are our thoughts on Vanilla Fudge. We go now to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews. The moment we've all been waiting for. The true highlight of the show. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
If you enjoy this, I bet you can do better. Not a great showing.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what is your haiku?
Hits of the 60s, covered by a few hippies that move at their pace.
Mm-hmm. My haiku, psychedelic takes on some of the hits back then. Really far out, man.
Question. Does this, I have not thought about, did people drop acid and listen to this? Because what a weird album for psychedelics.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't want to step in the way of your art now.
No,
so. But that just hit
worth
me.
Bringing up.
Yeah.
For being a psychedelic
it's
album.
That's not a question, but it's
brand.
worth talking about.
It's on brand.
Yeah, it's worth talking and thinking about. Matt, last but not least, what is your haiku?
Well-known 60s hits, creatively transmuted to psychedelia.
Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Vanilla Fudge's Vanilla Fudge. It's their debut eponymous album. You can, of course, find us on our Spotify playlist, Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record and presumably, unless we do something like a guest episode, because again, it's starting the cycle over. There's always the opportunity of that. It's going to be my album, and you know what? I'm going to pick an album that just dropped. Take advantage of keeping the self-titled, in a way, debut rolling. We're going to be talking about what you get when you mix pop with nu metal and a whole lot of feminine anger. You get you get English, Japanese-born English artist Rina Sawayama and her much anticipated, much buzzed about debut Sawayama. I haven't even listened to this album. I've only listened to a couple of singles, so I'm curious. I hear a lot of buzz about her. She's, of course, getting a lot of reviews on actual people that actually review music, but I thought it would be fun for us to experience this album, whatever this is.
Music. We're real people.
Not actually.
Why not?
Because I'm not an actual person.
We're cooler than NME, but that's about it.
Damn it! What the hell happened to Dragon Con? Jesus Christ!
Yeah. I don't know. You can only answer that for yourself, David. While David answers that for himself, you can answer yourself your questions of whether you're going to listen and subscribe to this podcast by saying yes. Subscribing to us. You can follow us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Matt is at MRiddickW. Brett is at Hibbidibibird, HIBBITYBIBBARD. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and a bunch of other places. You find us everywhere you find podcasts.
Now I want you all to listen to me very carefully. PD Rave works very hard on the Record Breakers podcast, putting it up on video, putting it up in an RSS feed for you audio listeners out there. The least you can do is give him a thumbs up, give PD Rave your like, share, subscribes, and go into Apple Podcasts and give the Record Breakers podcast and all of the other Rebelli podcasts a good review. PD Rave's a great guy. Do that for him.
So do all the things: subscribe, like, share, hit the bell, slap the horse, spank the monkey. Do all the things. Until next time.
Wax the weasel.
Hasta los huevos.
Bang.
Rebelli podcast, baby.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.